Hello YouTube, and welcome to my channel. I am Benedict the 17th, and today I'm going to respond to some comments made in my last two Liberalist videos. A lot of people raised some very good questions, and I'm going to address 6 of them here. The first 2 regard the actual definition of liberalism. Then I will address criticism from the alt-right perspective, 2 from the traditionalist perspective, and 1 from the modernist perspective. So let's get started. In my Defense of Liberalists video, I said that liberalists were a middle way between liberals and libertarians. Justin Case replied by saying that those two ideologies share almost all of their views, and asked what distinguishes liberalists from either one. He also pointed to what he saw as a contradiction between the role of the state as protecting individual rights and securing the common good. These two are both criticisms often made of liberalists. That in principle, we are no different from libertarians, but in practice, no different from progressives. Furthermore, it's said that with wanting the state to protect individual rights and secure the common good, we are trying to have our cake and eat it too. Because they are related, I will address them together. I think the distinction is that modern-day progressives believe that the role of the state is to pursue the common good, and if the state must violate individual rights to do so, it can. Libertarians believe that the role of the state is to preserve individual rights and not to concern itself with the common good at all. Liberalists aren't merely a combination between these two. We disagree with liberals because we don't believe the state exists to secure the common good. We disagree with libertarians because we don't believe the state exists to only protect individual rights. Rather, we believe that the state exists to secure the necessary conditions for the common good. This includes individual rights, but it also includes other capacities, ensuring a necessary level of infrastructure, education, and sanitation, for example. Thus, not the common good itself, but the necessary conditions for it, of which individual rights are an important and, in fact, foundational part. For example, on the issue of healthcare, a liberal would say, yes, the government's role is to secure the common good, so having a vast public healthcare system will ensure a higher level of healthcare for everybody, so we should have universal healthcare. A libertarian, on the other hand, would say, no, the government's role is to secure individual rights, and the government doesn't have a right to redistribute wealth by making any one individual pay for anyone else's healthcare, so we should not have universal healthcare. The liberalist, on the other hand, would say, maybe. The government's role is to secure the necessary conditions for the common good. That includes individual rights, but also includes minimum basic needs. If the government can provide those minimum basic needs more cost-effectively than private institutions, there is no problem with the government doing so. So providing a minimum basic healthcare does not violate liberalist principles, but using tax money to pay for cosmetic, experimental, or non-necessary treatment would be. Finally, at the most basic level, our differentiation from liberals and libertarians is in anthropology. Liberals place value on the welfare of the individual only in relationship to the welfare of society. The individual is merely a cog in a machine. Libertarians are the opposite. For them, society only exists as a byproduct of individual interactions. Liberalists refuse to accept either kind of reductionism. We believe human beings are individuals with a capacity and orientation toward other individuals, whose welfare is related to their freedom and their capacity to participate in society with dignity. The third criticism comes from the quintessential WASP. He says, whether we like it or not, racial identity does play a significant role in shaping the politics of most people, and liberalists don't seem to have a good answer for how we should address this. I think he's right when he says racial identity plays a significant role in shaping the politics of most people. And I think this is something the left doesn't like to publicly acknowledge nearly as much as they rely on it to gain political power. But I think it's worth noting that racial identity is usually not the biggest influencer on a person's politics. I think family, friends, culture, core values, one's trade, and class are all factors that are as big, if not bigger than race in predicting political beliefs. And I do think liberalists have a good answer for how we should address this. as individuals. If someone has a political position you don't like, build a relationship with them and convince them rationally to change it. There's no need to use government force to regulate it. I find it very strange how the alt-right, who want to promote a white culture, seem to readily support authoritarianism, when individualism, a system of rights, and limited government seem to be among the defining makers of white culture. Thus, I think the quintessential WASP is wrong because he thinks that because liberalists don't believe it's the role of the state to do something, liberalists must believe that the thing is not worth doing. This is not the case at all. There are a number of goods in society that we ought to pursue as private individuals or groups of individuals, but not every one of them requires a government solution. The fourth point comes from Panarchy Ball. He says, as a Catholic liberalist, don't you think that subsidiarity should be added to the list of liberalist principles? For those that don't know the term, subsidiarity is the idea that decision-making should be made at the most local authority possible. If an individual or a small local community can do something for itself, then there's no need for the national community to get involved. If a nation can resolve an issue for itself, there's no need for the international community to get involved. I think subsidiarity is already implied in the principles. In my first video, I dealt with self-reliance at an individual level. However, we can speak of a community or even a country having a right and responsibility to self-reliance. Perhaps it would make sense to change the name of that principle from self-reliance to subsidiarity, but I'm not sure if that term is well enough known outside of Catholic circles to gain traction. Thus, I agree that the idea of subsidiarity should be part of the movement, but I'm not sure if the word itself can be. The fifth criticism comes from Doragoon01, who said, I believe this is your problem, the inability to understand the question, what is good, and how do we know it? Similar to the above, I think the answer is distinguishing between the social order, the moral order, and the political order. As a Catholic, I believe that the good is to love God with my whole heart, mind, and strength, and to serve my neighbor as myself. And I believe this because I believe that the historical and rational evidence presented to me points to Jesus Christ being the Son of God. This is the good, and I try to pursue it in my life to the best of my ability. I don't think it's the role of the government to tell me or anyone else how to do it. That is the distinction between the moral order and the political order. The political order is grounded in the moral order through a system of individual rights, but it's distinct from it. Thus, we do know what the good is, but don't feel it ought to be prescribed by law. Finally, the last criticism is from Henry Faust, who says, there is one problem with this that screams out to me. You presume that human beings are good. Human beings are not good. Human beings are only good in potentiae. I think that depends on what you mean by good. I believe human beings are existentially good in the sense that they are beings and being in itself is good. The good, the true, and the beautiful are all aspects and different ways of understanding being. Existentially, humans and angels are the only things that could even be said to approach the goodness of God Himself, since only humans and angels can freely participate in His creative will. If you mean moral goodness, I agree. Man has a great capacity for good and for evil. I believe it is better that each man be allowed to use that capacity with the full knowledge that some men will do evil, in the hopes that others will do good, rather than restricting human freedom and having neither good nor evil. I hope I've answered these questions satisfactorily. If not, feel free to tell me why in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to see more like it. Also check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me. Until next time, I'm Benedict the 17th. Go with God.